This episode is brought to you by Neo Books and Coffee. Neo Books and Coffee is an independent bookshop and coffee bar housing a wide collection of both English and Arabic books, and a coffee bar that serves and sells the finest quality coffee beans and exquisite teas. Hi there, this is Hoakalei Yoga. You are listening to the Woman Power Podcast, a subsidiary platform to the Woman Power Summit, the largest event in MENA, with the aim of empowering women and helping them achieve their absolute highest potential. Each week on the Woman Power Podcast, you will hear honest, vulnerable, authentic, real conversations from inspiring women. These women will share their experiences and stories into what it takes to build a successful business and career. The podcast will share insight and inspiration and hopefully inspire action and lead change. I wanted to ask you, have you moved? Where are you now? And because I know you're not in Saudi, so where are you?
So home is Saudi. Saudi is, Jeddah to be specific. I am currently in Turkey in a small little, you can say, a coastal village. This is where maybe my new home is. This is where I'm calling home number 2.
First of all, have you announced your move on social?
I haven't really announced it full blast. And the reason is, in the beginning, I was kind of hesitant. Am I really doing this? So when we chose, the story of me or us choosing to move, specifically coming to Turkey we hold a lot of yoga retreats all throughout the year. We do a lot of travel. So we were like, how about we live 6 months abroad? I'm born and raised in Saudi. Haitham is from Syria. So we travel a lot for work, but at the same time, Saudi has been this safe haven for us. It's the place where we always come back to. So we were trying to find a place that we can venture out and maybe get out of our comfort zone a little bit. I've never really lived abroad. I've never lived outside of Jeddah. So experiencing something, but not too far from home. So we specifically chose Turkey. It's close to home, and it has a little bit of our culture. Haytham's family live in Paris now, so we wanted a connecting point. So somewhere we can jump from Jeddah to and then go visit his family, somewhere in the middle where it's not too far from Asia and it's still close to home, but at the same time be able to experience something a little bit different, new. Maybe push the boundary a little bit, because again, Saudi, anywhere, not just specifically Saudi, anywhere can get super comfortable and very mundane and routine-ish.
It's so crazy that you made this move. And, I was piecing the parts together. You were cooking and you're shopping, and I'm like, and I can see a house, and I'm like, did she move? And it's fascinating to me because I feel like, and maybe I'm generalizing a little bit, but I think when people move, it's usually for a job, or they're moving to be with a partner. So their partners have this job. Or people are moving back from to study, and then they come back. But what you and Haytham are doing, which is so fascinating, is you've chosen to move by choice, but you're entrepreneurs. So it's so, I didn't realize how strange that was to our culture. Who does that? Who starts their company and moves with their partner into a different place by choice, not because of a new position or a role? This is something you curated on your own. So I find the decision very brave. So my question to you is, how long have you been thinking about this move? And what is the story behind the move?
Well, thank you for putting it that way. You made me look at it from a different perspective. So thanks. I'm 32 years old. So again, I never lived outside of Saudi. All I know is Saudi. I travel a lot. I've been traveling since I was a young child with my parents. My mom is from Hawaii, so we would travel to the States in the summertime. But I never lived abroad. I never went to university abroad. I never really spent, let's say, more than 3 months out of Saudi. So when I think at the age of 28, we were like, okay, so do we want to experience something else? We don't have children. We do have a great, Haytham had a corporate job. I had my yoga studio. But for a while, I felt like the yoga studio, it was a phenomenal experience. It was one of the leading yoga studios in Saudi Arabia. However, I felt like at one point, it was semi-weighing me down. It kept pulling me back, and it became this another job that I was doing versus something that was helping me grow. And when me and Haytham sat down one evening and we were just like, okay, we're traveling a lot and it's amazing to come back here, but how about if we try to live abroad? And it's just, I want to say it's funny, but it's really not. Like how this, with everything that's happening with the pandemic globally, how everything just aligned perfectly, because we decided to close our studio prior to any of this happening. So we didn't have to close down. We chose to close down. And now that I look back at how everything connects, I'm like, oh my God, we closed prior to all of this happening. We moved countries. I'm going to tell you, it was extremely challenging, really acknowledging the fact that, okay, we've moved countries, we've launched a business, there's so much, but the move itself, it happened really like, it was easy at first. It was petrifying, like at the first few days of me really acknowledging, okay, this is really happening. And then gradually things just started to happen so smoothly. And specifically, maybe my sister, look, I come to Turkey quite often. I've been here maybe 4 or 5 times with work and for holiday, but I never said, okay, this is the place that I want to live and this is the place where I want to start something new. It didn't happen that way at all. My sister has been living in Turkey for the past 3 years. I visited her for her birthday. It was summer. I usually visited Turkey in the winter. And when I visited her, she was living out of the suburbs of Istanbul, in a stunning area. And as soon as I got there, I'm not exaggerating, 5 minutes to my arrival, I called up Haytham. He's like, what's up? And I'm like, listen, do you want to move? Remember, we've been talking about this, but do you really want to do this? He's like, what do you mean, where? I'm like, here. He's like, you mean here to where? To Turkey? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, yes, let's do it. It wasn't even like, oh, let's think about it. Let's look for a house. It was just, yes, let's do it. And 1 week after we came back and I started announcing to people in the yoga studio, you guys will be closing the studio at the end of the year. And now that it's like I manifested this. It's like I called for this to happen. And then 7 to 8 months later, we closed everything up. We moved, we had a kind of a big apartment in Saudi, and we moved into something a little bit smaller. And then the idea was we would have something small in Jeddah that we can come visit and have a house and find a house in Turkey. And now that we found our house in Turkey, we closed our house in Jeddah. And oh my gosh, was that very, very difficult. And what's funny is we were finding a difficulty really finding a house to reside in and really call home and really rent out. But we noticed we had to give up our other home in Jeddah in order to find this place, which was very, very difficult at first. The first 6 months being here, we were staying in Airbnbs, which was a phenomenal experience. But 3 months, 4 months into it, I was like, I need a home. I need a home. Yeah.
I mean, there's just so much in this story to unpack. This idea of closing one door in order for the next door to open, that fear of letting go, because we always want to have backups and we want to have safety nets, and you're just like, I have to close this to open this. Like that in its own is very powerful. And you hear a lot about this. Like you need to maybe like leave your job to do your business, or you need to quit one thing to do another, to create space and to create room for all these new experiences to enter. So that's so powerful. What do you miss the most about Saudi?
Lately, it's funny that you asked this right now, because I was messaging Nada Hakim, who was on the podcast, and I was just saying, it's hitting me now. It's hitting me that I'm far away from you guys. It's hitting me that I can't just open up the door and drive over or come over. And I miss my family. I miss my friends. I definitely miss everybody that was coming to the studio. There was this sweetness to it. It was more than just a yoga studio. It was the space where people came and allowed themselves to feel and to be and to connect. There are certain aspects about Jeddah. If you haven't visited it, it has a charm. It does have its difficulties as everywhere else, but now I realize being here, it's the little things. It's the ability to speak in Arabic at any point in any chosen time. It's the food, definitely the food, and just my people back home.
What do you miss about living in a city? Because now you are in rural Turkey. So what do you miss about like being in a buzzing city with a lot of speed and energy?
The truth, I don't really miss it just yet because I've been in Istanbul for the past 7 months, and it's a very hectic city. It can be very hectic. I was living as well in a more suburbs area. However, I have the choice now. I can get into a car and drive an hour to the city. But I'm noticing since I've been here, I was telling this to Haytham just yesterday, that I don't want to leave the house at all. And it's like because I haven't had a house for such a long time, I just want to be here. I'm cooking every single day, 2 to 3 times a day. I'm doing the little things, like I'm washing my clothes in my washing machine, and I'm ironing, and I'm folding, and it's the little things that we really, really take for granted. It's just having the space where you know where everything is, where you know the suitcases, you don't see suitcases in sight. They're in the storage room. It's these little things. And I know I'm going to be missing the city. I do miss the city, but I realize the older I get, the less I want more fast pace, and maybe for a couple of hours on the weekend, but it's really nice where I'm at right now. I'm literally between hills, and I can right now, while speaking to you, I can look at the sea, and there's greenery and the sky is blue, and this is what I need right now. This is what I need.
Did your parents think you were crazy, or were they supportive?
It's a good question. There's a long history with specifically my father. I love this man dearly. But in the beginning, he was like, oh, I have one in Turkey. I can't have another one go to Turkey, but he was very supportive, right? He doesn't really voice out clearly what is, but he kind of just like hints, like, I'm so happy for you, but are you sure about this? And he was very supportive, like even about the apartment, when we decided to close the small apartment, he was the first person that was there helping and like moving and shifting, and we'll store your stuff for you guys and know that you have a home. And he was just really reassuring from that aspect. However, you can read between the lines a little bit. Like he would mention to my mom would mention to us, he just misses his girls. But again, alhamdulillah, we're close to home. Like it's literally, I think it's a 2-hour flight, 2 hour and 45-minute flight versus, I don't know, where we would usually be. I'm usually in Bali and it's like a 14-hour flight, or, in Nepal, so yeah.
Being half Hawaiian, how has that impacted your personality?
I come from a very, very big tribe in Saudi, super, super Badawi. It doesn't get more, you can't get more, I think, Saudi than like a Shehri tribe. And coming from this super Shehri from my dad's side, and then coming from a super tribal side from my mom's side, but a Hawaiian tribal. And my mom, when she specifically says from Hawaii and not the States for many reasons, but like reason number one is Hawaii really was the last state to join America, and it's very much still Hawaii. And my mom actually does descend, like the tribe that we come from Hawaii, do descend from the Hawaiian royal family. And so it's very interesting. There's a lot of similarities between Hawaii and the Middle East culture. Big families, and extremely non-individualistic. It's very much, we're all together, a lot of children, and like keeping like this idea of keeping your family name and these traditions alive. But there are a lot of, in the beginning, growing up, when you were talking about like all these ladies or women from Jeddah that come from a non-Saudi mother, I grew up in a community called the Hafis. So we were half this and half that, right? And it was a very good time for a while. And then I remember going through a very big struggle, entering a little bit of my teens. Actually, before teens, 4th grade to be specific. I noticed in school that my Arabic I spoke Arabic, but I didn't speak Arabic the Shehri way, right? And then people read my name, and I at the time I looked very much Saudi, like I looked like a typical Saudi girl. But why is this typical Saudi girl that has a Shehri last name, why can't she speak Arabic this way? Everybody else is. So I kind of got, I don't want to use the word really bullied, but everybody did comment about that. And then my English was so well. So what is going on here? And then there were girls who their moms were American and they were blonde and had blue eyes and, much more fair skin. And so a lot of teachers would comment like, this one looks more American than you. So I kind of shunned that idea. In the beginning, I was like, I just want to be Hanan that speaks English well and speaks Arabi, whatever, however way I was speaking it. And then I started developing the stutter, I noticed, and I found myself afraid to speak a lot. So that was something I had to get over. It took me a lot of time in healing and understanding and really just acknowledging that this is not a negative thing. And then in the midst of my family, actually, precisely, again, from my father's side, it was a lot of, at the time I didn't really realize it was, I don't want to say just jealousy, like it was like these people have something, this family has something different than us. This family travels. And again, my father's side of the family is very traditional, very to themselves. And we were much more outgoing. We were going and doing activities. And at a certain age, they started to be very traditional in the sense of like covering and being very conservative. And my father wasn't like that. And so it was just like, I found myself at a very young age having to constantly like prove and push the boundary and draw a line and learn how to draw a boundary. And though I wasn't doing a really good job at it at the time, but just understanding that this is okay. This is fine. What I'm doing is not wrong. I'm not bringing shame to my family. And it took a lot it was very frustrating at times, but I think I tried to do the best I could.
So I want to talk about Hanan before yoga. Like, we know you as this ultra yogi, like really living the values of being in the space of like energy and wellness. We know you as this instructor who's now pivoting her platform into an online one. And I love looking at your business model and how, you've shifted into like a digital space. But before this and before Haytham, because Haytham is such a big part of the picture as well, who was Hanan? What did Hanan study?
Graduated from nursing college. And I'm just going to really mention this. It's been a long time since by the way, I'm writing a book. And one of the things that I'm really highlighting is because I notice when people ask me this, or when I'm just thinking about it between me and myself, there's times where I just kind of like, I look back and there's so much that I want to tell Hanan at specific ages. But I remember vividly in high school, we had this day where they brought in speakers for the senior graduates on like how to inspire them on what they should study, what fields they should get into. And I listened to a bunch of speakers. And on that specific day, I went out with my mom to this women's gathering, and this beautiful woman comes in, and she was a nurse, and she comes from a very, very, very big family, like one of the biggest families in Saudi, very powerful financially and in every way you can imagine. And she was a nurse. And I just remember vividly sitting in front of this beautiful, beautiful woman, and who's a nurse, who's a billionaire, right? And she's a nurse. And I'm like, what? And I've always known that I wanted to help people. I feel like, by the way, everybody on earth, everybody's born wanting to help each other. This is innate within us, right? And she said it very just beautifully. She's like, we need more Saudi nurses. The percentage of Saudi nurses is like 0.5%, nothing. And while she was speaking, I just felt, at the time, I didn't know I was in alignment, right? But now I look back and just everything connects. It was on the same day as this speaking thing at school happening. She comes in, I asked the question, I got the answer. Immediately, I told my parents I want to study nursing. I got into nursing school, studied nursing. I don't even know how that happened, by the way. Now that I look back at it, I'm like, what? I was an ER nurse for 2.5 years. Like, even Haytham sometimes, like, Hanan, by the way, you remember when you were a nurse? So, and when I tell him some of my stories, because we talk all the time, but when sometimes I pull out one of my nursing stories, it's like, Hanan, I still can't get over your nurse. I just can't. And it was a phenomenal experience. I had such a phenomenal work ethic, looking back at this 21-year-old girl that was doing 12-hour shifts, working 6 days a week, seeing life and death, burn patients. Like, how was I wow, like looking at how courageous I was then versus now, like to me, there was things now, if I were to face, I don't know how I would deal with it versus Hanan then. I wasn't really thinking. I was more in a doing and exploring and experiencing. I didn't get much sleep, but I had so much energy. I had so many friends from different nationalities, from Filipinos, Indians, Pakistanis, Nepali, Chinese, and at the time, people found that a little bit odd. Usually Saudi girls would be doing specific things. And I'm just going to slide this in here, but like one of the things that my dad made it very clear is like, Hanan, if you want money, you got to work. So like, it was one of those things. So people were kind of like chilling after college or trying to find a job and traveling. And I was like, I'm working and I have a job and I'm like, starting to save up these kind of things. This mentality was already embedded within me definitely from my parents, but I was on work mode and I saw a lot of things in the ER, a lot of things. And one of the things that really shook me to my core was a very intense case that came in. It was something out of like a movie. And I remember going into the bathroom. My shift was ending. It was Ramadan. And usually for some reason in Ramadan, the ER is just it's like 10 times more chaotic than it would be in any other day. And a very intense case came in. I just remember I was ending my shift. I was ending a night shift from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. So I was handing over to the next shift. We called like the endorsement time. And this case came in and it just shook everybody to its core. I went into the bathroom and I found myself just crying and I called my dad at 7 a.m. in the morning. And I'm like, can you pick me up? And I became from Hanan, this 21 or I think 22 at the time, I just became this child. And I felt in me, again, at the time, I didn't know this is what it was. Now that I recap to it, I can see it. But I felt like something needed to end, something needed to close now, and something new needed to open. And I mentioned it to my parents that I want to leave. I want to find another job or I want to get into something different. My dad just said one thing. He's like, Hanan, the most important thing to me is that you don't leave this in a sense that you're running away, that you feel like you took what you needed from this. And I did. I decided to find another job, and it was very easy for me to find a job because I spoke English, by the way. I had this one-up because I'm Saudi and I can speak English. That was a very big privilege. I got a job as a personal assistant at a big multinational company. And that job gave me, it was like the college, like my business degree at college kind of, right? I learned everything and I was in this field, in this company that it was like this 5-star serviced offices. So we had every client from Microsoft to General Electric to all these big brands that were rent office spaces from us. So I was watching all these different kinds of people come in, different kind of ideas, this work ethic that I never, like everything was very new to me from nursing. So I spent a year with them just observing and learning, and they sent me to training in Qatar for a month. There was so many different experiences. And then I was recruited from one of the companies that rented from us. It was an advertising agency that I worked for 2 years. So it's just like one thing led me to the other, and I was just very open to experiencing new things. At the time, people were like, oh, this is not going to look good at your CV. But I was just like, I don't know what you guys are talking about. I'm learning. I am learning, and I'm not going to pass this experience up. And then LinkedIn came up, and it was a big thing to get on LinkedIn. So I was at this advertising agency for 2 years and a half, and then I got on LinkedIn, and then 5 days later, I was contacted by the third biggest food company in the world, and they wanted me for an interview, and I was like, when I told people the name of the company that was in contact with me, they're like, Hanan, this is like what? This is phenomenal. You cannot miss this out. I remember because I told people, I became nervous because they made it seem so impossible to get in. And then I went for the interview and I got the job. And people are like, but what do you mean? You have to panel to get into this company. It's so difficult. And I'm like, no, but here's my job offer. I'm signing it right now. And I ended up working for this company for 6 years as their learning and development manager. It was just like, bum, 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 you know?
You've made me a bit curious about the case, because there was a shift there where you were like, you said, I don't want to run away from this, but I had to close this chapter. So
I'm all about vulnerability, so I would share this, but I usually find when people hear this, I don't want to give like a bad rep, but at the same time, I feel that I really walk on eggshells, specifically talking about certain topics, and I don't want to live in this, I don't know, this fear, or like, it was a murder case. A father murdered his daughter.
Was it like an honor killing?
What was, I think, really triggering for me in the ER at that time was like, when I noticed people immediately started saying, I wonder why. I'm like, are we, this is what we're worried about, right? Like, are we talking about, I wonder, did he find her with a boy? I'm like, are we really talking about this? Even if she was doing, I don't know what, with whomever, the way he decided to kill her was horrific. Like, he chopped off her head with a kitchen knife. So imagine being this girl who right, I'm looking at myself and she's me, I'm her. Like, you know what? It's not that I could be her, but I see me in her.
And I think that means you obviously have a lot of empathy and you can put yourself in other people's shoes, and then you have a different perspective. Did you follow the case afterwards? Did you want to know more?
Definitely. It was in the newspaper. First of all, I've never seen like really the secret police before, like the way it was handled, the way apparently the father wasn't in his mental health. He was really, really, really bad. And he was on drugs and he was separated from the mother for a long time. And apparently like there was some, like, this is where it kind of, is not clear. That apparently he was like sexually harassing his daughter from a very young age, and that's why the mother decided to separate from him. But of course, they don't mention this on the media outlets or on the news, or but the way the body was, like the way he killed her and the way he stabbed, and it was just very, 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 very horrific. So he was put in jail. He was definitely put in jail. But at that very minute, I just felt like, okay, I'm really devastated. There's so much for me that I can do. I became such a child between my parents that I actually slept in my parents' bedroom that day. From how impacted I was, I just felt like I've actually seen horrific cases before in the ER, but specifically a murder case like this, no. And nobody did, not even the head doctor of the ER who has been there for like 30 years. So it was like, I don't know, like, I can't even believe I'm saying this, but like, I needed to be there to see this. I needed to, there was some, like, ibra for me, like some wisdom in it for me, or there was something that I was supposed to see. But again, at the time, I didn't see it that way. Oh yeah, this is where I realized that there's a lot to this. I have a jaw situation, so I grind my teeth quite often, and my grinding started when I was a very young age, and I noticed not very young age, between 14 to 16, it would come and go. But when this situation happened, oh my God, I was grinding solid for 2 years, and it was just like there's this in grinding when you really want to go deep dive into it. It's like I'm clenching on. There's so much anger inside of me, but I'm suppressing it in, right? And I'm just gonna, I actually, if you think about it even more, if you want to go deeper, you don't allow yourself to feel it so much that it releases itself when you're asleep. When you're supposed to be in your deepest state of relaxation and you're letting go, that pain is coming to say, actually, you're full with pain, and I need to release this pain. So I'm going to release in the only time where you're not going to control me, which is throughout your sleep.
Neo Books and Coffee is a proud sponsor of the Women Power podcast. You can browse their incredible, beautifully curated book selection, build your wish list, and request out-of-stock and unlisted titles with the Neo Books and Coffee app, which is available to download on the Apple and Google Play Store. Neo Books and Coffee is an independent bookshop and coffee bar, housing a wide selection of English and Arabic books, stationery, and gifts. Their coffee bar serves and sells quality teas and only the finest Arabica beans. Everything is done to perfection and they have great attention to detail. They also have a stunning drive-through station, which you can pick up your books along with your morning coffee on your way to work. To know more about Neo Books, check out their Instagram page and download their app. I see what you mean about you had to see that for something in your life to change to get you closer to where you were meant to go. And sometimes those experiences are blessings in disguise in a very strange way, because that was the end of one chapter for you. It feels to me like you said when you were a nurse, you had very strong work ethic. And then when you worked in this, as a PA, and then later on with, in the corporate world that prepared you, like you were learning probably professionalism and, taking minutes of meetings and just like, what is the corporate world like or the private sector like? And then advertising is all creativity. I don't know, what were you doing at the agency? Were you doing?
First of all, they hired me for the first week. I was an office manager. It was a small advertising boutique. And these two guys, oh my gosh, the two guys that owned this agency both worked for the company that I ended up leaving for afterwards. So it was just, it happened to be that way. But these guys came in with they were super cool. And this is what pulled me to them, super creative and super out of the box. And they were like, they saw me at the company where they were renting at, and they just saw this. I think they saw as well somebody cool, right? Cool, takes our job very seriously, and their team was growing, but they didn't know where to put me exactly. They're like, "Can we just come on board and we'll figure it out, right?" So I jumped on board, and they're like, "Okay, you're good at this. Let's help us be our office manager for 2 weeks." I'm like, "Okay," I did that. "Okay, you're gonna handle traffic." You know what traffic is? I'm like, "No." "You're gonna have to manage the studio and client servicing." And I'm like, and that was so difficult, having to be confrontational at some points, right? And manage this workflow between client servicing and the creatives. And then gradually I was like, okay, I want to be an account executive. They're like, sure, you're going to be an AE. Da-da-da. And then I was handling smaller brands. And then I handled my first big brand, and I traveled the first time for my brand, and it going to their headquarters in Holland. And I'm like, I can't believe I'm doing this. And you feel like I did go through a phase where I had this imposter syndrome, because I felt like I'm in the elevator and I'm going into this meeting, but I'm so confused. I was just a nurse 2 years ago. Now I'm, can I really do this? Am I really doing this? Are people going to call me out and say, "Hannah, what are you doing? What are you doing?" But I did it anyways. This voice was there, and it was actually, this voice is usually on my left side. And it's telling me, "You're so lame. I don't know what you're doing. You're so lame. This is what is this? This is calling you out. You're wearing this because I took for every job, by the way, I kind of suited up for this job. People are going to see through this. You're wearing this suit, and no, you're not. You don't have this degree that everybody else has. No, you didn't graduate from this. You don't have your master's in that, right? But yeah, I did it anyways.
What did you learn from the agency world? The one thing you're I walked away from, this is the most important lesson I learned from that experience.
Wow, that's such a good question. What did I learn from the agency world? In the beginning, I got a lot of no's. No, this is not a good idea. And I remember sitting amongst people, and while in a brainstorming session, I felt that anything I would say will not be as good as everybody else. All of these people know their stuff, Hanan. Just shut up and listen, right? And I did that for such a long time. And then every time somebody would say something, I was just about to say it. But I just kind of suppressed it in, and I did not allow myself to say it. I did confront a very hard time at one point from one of my managers, and he just would come to me when I go up to him with you can say problems, things I couldn't figure out. He's like, Hanan, never come to me with a problem, or come to me with a problem and have 3 solutions for this problem. Never come to me expecting me to help you figure this out. You figure it out. And I remember like, but you're my manager. Like, who do I talk to? I have no one else to talk to. So I had to just deal with things sometimes and just have to sit and research and go deep into it. So it's just, obviously it's not, do ask for help. Please do ask for help at all times. But having to figure things out, having to read, open up random things. Even if you think, oh, this is not going to lead me somewhere. The things that I've read, the things that have led me to other things. But I allowed myself to believe that I can figure this out. So it just enabled within me this everything is figure outable. Like, oh my God, what's her name? Mary Forleo, exactly. Everything is figure outable. Look, I can do this. I can do this, right? So that would be my biggest thing. Particularly coming from a nursing background and jumping into this, I had literally no expertise. I didn't even know what POS standed for or these abbreviations. I had no idea what these abbreviations were. And then we're very quick learners if we allow ourselves to be, and if we don't constantly put these restrictions on ourselves.
What a great way to prepare you to start your own thing and to start your own, like, talk about like the perfect lesson to know or to experience to prepare you for your next chapter. Where does your learning attitude come from? You said that you were in nursing, you worked in the private sector or in, the corporate world, and then you worked in an agency, but you said, I'm learning. And I'm assuming that's why you stayed at the agency for so long. I'm sure every day was different and you had different challenges to solve and you were being shifted from different roles. So you were learning how to do different things. But where does this love for learning come from that somebody's like, what is this mess of a CV? And you're like, I don't care about that. Like, that's not my... I'm not focusing on that. I'm focusing on being a hyper learner almost.
Learning in particular, look, I wasn't the best student in school at all. So literally from first grade all the way up to my senior year, I didn't pull off the grades that I think my dad or my parents would have loved, or like, I did it because I had to do it. Ever since I was very young, let's say 7th grade, 8th grade, my mom made it a fact that in the summer that we would get summer jobs. And I noticed when summer job time came, as much as I kind of regretted waking up in the morning early, it was for a month. I was like, something is pulling me to go there. So I would work in a bank. My mom was a manager of the bank, and she would be like, okay, Hannah, you're going to come and help us fill out forms for the elder ladies that would come, like that can't fill out the form. So I would read the form for them and help them fill out their form and stand and my mom I would have to be there on time and 15 minutes before sometimes, just to build this work ethic within me. And I loved it. I felt very purposeful. I felt like I was doing something with my day. I felt like I came home and I had stories to share. Got me excited. And then gradually went from nursing. I had so much fun, by the way. I really did. Every day I left and it was very intense. I was tired, but I felt like I accomplished something. And from there, same thing in the advertising world. In particular the advertising world, I didn't like, it was 2.5 years, but again, it was so different. I think because I don't want to say extremes, like I go to different things. I think something I'm so open to learn about myself, because I really haven't fully comprehended it, is how do I seem to know? I think it's innate as well within all of us. How do we seem to know that one chapter is about to close and allowing the second chapter to open? Because everything changes. Everything truly does change. And it seems like a lot of people want to resist the change and don't want to allow new experiences to come in. And then that's where it becomes kind of like plateau, So now at 32, I can look back and I had a very crazy past 13 years of just like exploration. And now I'm finally setting into what does Hanan really want? So I think that learning, that particularly to answer the question, it's like these experiences I'm experiencing. It's like I'm like this child at a very young age that was just like, had all these questions to life. I never let go of that. I just kept it. I asked, by the way, sometimes Haytham's when we're sitting with people, he's like, Hanan, like, and not this question. I can ask any question. I don't feel embarrassed at all. I would be the person in a meeting room asking the question that everybody wants to ask. I'll ask it. Like, I'm willing to take the bullet for it because I don't think I'm willing to look, I don't know. I don't want to use the word, like, I'm willing not to look smart, you know, I'm willing to.
You have such a curious, you're curious about things and interested in things. And I think it's so fascinating because someone could give you like the most mundane subject and you'd be like, oh, but how does this work? And, you know, how did this start? And you'll try to find the story there and just, you know, connect with whatever it is that you're looking at. But I think that's, like you said, most learners are curious about life and they're interested in learning about how things work and finding answers, you know. So I think that is an awesome quality to have, and that will stay with you for a very long time, you know, which is amazing. So what came first? Did yoga come first or did Haytham come first?
The yoga, definitely. This is the, by the way, I'll just put this out there, Wafa. I am not exaggerating. I have at least 500 people, if not more, that want to know the story of how Haytham and I met. I'm gonna talk about it a little bit on this podcast, okay? Because I had to deal with Hanan and all of Hanan's stuff and learn how to really care for Hanan and love Hanan before anybody else. It's just what it is. Nobody's gonna come into your life and love you the way you want to be loved until you love you, until you know who you are. And I feel in order for anyone to bring in that partner into your life, you've got to really know, what do you really want? What are your values? What does Hanan want prior to getting into a relationship? Before we have who am I? Who's Hanan?
So I think what you and Haytham have is very special and very, very interesting because you also work together now. But there is a lot of synergy between you and Haytham. I find that you complement each other in a very interesting way. It's just like an energy that I'm feeling. But I find that you have very different personality types and skill sets, but together it makes a lot of sense and there's a lot of harmony. So yeah, I would love to know how you guys met, and you can share whatever parts of the story you want to share with the intention of, and he's very much present in your life, not just for you, but also for all of us that are part of your community.
Thank you for saying that. I really feel so nice to hear this from somebody. It's been a lot of work into this relationship. By the way, I'm just gonna as well say this. I believe in smart working versus hard working, but this relationship took a lot of hard work. I feel like a lot of people don't say this, but there were times, there were a lot of times in the beginning of our marriage where I felt like, okay, this is not working. I'm packing up my bags. I'm going back to my parents' house. This is not my thing. And choosing to deal with the stuff that we have to deal with. Like, okay, unpacking the bags, sitting down, bringing down that tone of voice, having the real communication, that not that we're shouting over each other communication, trying to deliver these points, but like, what are you trying to tell me? I can't understand what you're saying. This is how I'm feeling. Okay, but you're not understanding my emotions, right? And just like laying it out. And it's again and again and again until we got it. And we haven't really got it either. Like every time we go on a new adventure, like with the move, there's no new stuff. With him, before the move, with him choosing to leave his corporate, he had a phenomenal career in advertising. He's like I say it, though he doesn't like it, he's a marketing guru to me, really. And he has such a phenomenal work ethic. He's such a, there's a negative and a positive to it, like his perfectionism, right? And then he has this crazy creative side. He's a singer, he's a lead guitarist, he's a pianist, right? It's so much. So he has both of this. And then just again and again, when he decided to leave the corporate, having that time off, that had challenges. And then deciding to move had challenges. So it's been a lot of work, but I say it with pride, and I feel like we don't say it enough. I love him. I love him. I respect him. I look up to him. He inspires me. And I feel like we need to be in relationships with people that inspire us. I want to listen to, that I want to connect to, that I want to we say spend the rest of our lives with each other, but truly, he excites me, right? So he's somebody I can depend on. He can depend on me. And when you say complement each other, Wafa, the truth is, truly, I do feel that we do complement each other. I can be that sounding board for him. He can be that sounding board for me. We give each other what we need. And I think in order to give each other what we need to voice it out to one another and create that safe space to say, by the way, this is what I need. These are my non-negotiables. This is like a no for me. And we seem to think they have to, or not they, or people in general, people should just assume what we want or what we need. And I think that's a very misconception that we have. A lot of people think, oh, it's been just so, and I don't want to come off. I think the one thing I don't want to come off on social media particularly is that I'm this positive, or I'm always positive. Or when people are like positive vibes only, that's a very I'm like, that's so unrealistic. Like, if I cry, like, I don't know, at least 5 times a week. You know what I mean? At least. I'm afraid. There's so much. But thank you for seeing us.
What do people not see about your relationship with Haytham? You said that you work a lot on your communication, but are there times where you want to strangle each other because now you're roommates and you work together? Or do you feel like, we have a rule and in a week, we sort our shit out, or like we do therapy, or, or do you do anything that can, I'm assuming now that maybe it's not all like rosy, but are there things that you do to kind of get back on track? Or do you separate personal and work, or does it merge? What is it like working with your husband?
What day is it? Yeah, the day before yesterday, was very interesting because just today we've launched a very new way, literally prior to this recording, and he has a very different way of working than me, and I've noticed for a while that he has been trying to compromise on his ways of working. And I think the key word here is compromise. And a compromise can be good in some things, but extremely negative. If you're not in your truth, if you're not voicing out, by the way, this, again, if it's something that's non-negotiable for you and you're trying to compromise on that, you're actually harming yourself and harming me. So again, I don't know a few things until you tell me. Now I'm a bit more, I guess people don't see a lot of this on Instagram, on social media. It's like, I have a very, I do have this entrepreneurial as well mindset. So, I do, when people are like, oh, you can't mix yoga and this, I'm like, yeah, you can mix yoga and business 100%. And I'm all about really, working from an authentic, genuine place within me. So I'm definitely not going to record a video or a content or a meditation if I'm not centered and in my truth. I can't just produce content. And sometimes I think he wishes that I could, just come on, put on your work hat and let's film a video today. I'm like, not happening. So it's difficult for me to have that week in a day that I'm going to film on. It doesn't work that way for me. I'm really sorry. I wish I could film every Tuesday at 8 a.m. I wish, but I can't, right? And he's been trying to really be lean on that because obviously he wants a bit more routine and stuff like that, right? And we're trying to find that middle line. So I'm willing to have more of a schedule outlined for certain things. But when it comes to Hanan being in front of the camera and really speaking from that space of truth, can we kind of have a soft space? Can it be more like 3 days versus that 1 day? But again, he's the videographer. When we decided we're going to launch the brand, and how he, for months, all he did was research was lighting and the camera that we should get. And then, like you saw today with the recording of this, he will not do anything. I'm like, oh, by the way, we can record this way. He's like, no, we need to have this and we need to have that. He'll make sure that we do our part, or he does his part fully. Right. And I think what's a little bit for him is I'm doing everything fully, but you're not doing everything fully. Right. And that's when we had to talk it out. I'm like, by the way, this is me doing fully, but you might not understand it, but So it is a lot of, again, sitting and communicating. But I've learned, very difficult, when I'm triggered or he's triggered, that we give that space to breathe. If he says something to annoy me, and it's usually when we're arguing, he says something to annoy me, I want to fire back now. But that voice within me saying, not now, just trust me, give it like an hour, give it by the end of the day. And I'm like, let me just say that one more thing, and then this will take our time, right? But I'm figuring it out. I'm trying the best I can.
So Haytham does a lot of yoga as well. He does handstands. He's very, he's physically active like you are. Did you introduce him into that world? And did you inspire him to understand what this space is all about? Or was he already dabbling into the stuff and you found connection through there as well?
Haytham, when I met him, was a martial art fanatic. And when I say fanatic, like he was into Muay Thai, which is a specific martial arts, and it's very aggressive for me, very, very. And he would do a lot of fighting. I don't want to at all speak about it in a negative side, but for me, it's just somebody that you care about so much, going into this ring and coming back with it was very intense for me. I was very concerned, and I did karate growing up. I did taekwondo, but I would never, we didn't make each other bleed. It was not I don't want to hurt you. I'm just getting points by these taps, right? But they go all in. So, and he was very much into this fighting state. And then, but it was so weird to me. I'm like, you're a fighter, but you sing, and you're so sweet when you're so you're such a different person. But then you go into this fighting, and I have to just understand that this is something that he likes, and I had to be okay with it for a while. And then he had a knee injury that he got in Thailand in a fight. So I would just constantly be worried, is this injury going to be ignited? And it's his knee. And then gradually his injuries got so much that he had to put fighting on the back burner. He was very much a workaholic. He worked out every day. He runs. He's a big runner. He loves moving his body. And then when I found yoga and then gradually found Haytham, I decided to leave the corporate. He was very supportive. He was my 100%, do this, focus on this. He was not in the beginning for the first maybe 3 years of me launching the yoga studio and all. He was not at all he was supportive, but he wasn't invested. He wasn't helping me with the business. He just thought, this is something, right? Hanan keeps busy with. But when he would attend my classes, I would give mixed classes for men and women on 1 day a week. And when he would attend that class, and he would feel so good afterwards, and he saw the transition, because he was with me when I did my official yoga teacher training, my first one. So when I came back, and it was so different, there was a lot of things that changed within me. He, I think, kind of wanted to do something similar like that, but at the same time, he didn't want to be very much associated to Hanan. Haytham just did what Hanan did. He wanted to really make sure that, this is my journey. When all his jobs were in advertising, he worked for the number one agency in the world, and then he switched a few times. And at one point, he was the managing director for an agency, and things were not going well for him. He mentioned to me, at the same time, our relationship wasn't really doing the best at the time. Our communication, obviously, when he wasn't happy at work, the relationship got really impacted. And then he just kind of slid it in there. It was an evening. He just said, I want to go do my yoga teacher training. And when he said it, I couldn't, I tried not to jump up and down. I was just I'm going to act really cool about this. I'm like, are you sure you really want to do this? And then he sent the email, and then he signed up, and I'm like, what? And out of all the trainings, usually in every training, there's a bunch of, there's minimum, by the way, people think there's it's all girls. It's usually 50% men, 50% women. Just an FYI for everybody. So it's a very, I don't know, yoga to me is not a gender-based thing, but in the Middle East it is. He went into the training, and he was the only male between women. I'm like, no, this cannot be real. I thought he would want a buddy there, somebody, right? But he flourished, he learned, he grew. It's he needed to connect to this femininity that he had, but needed a little bit more I don't know, like, I think we all need balance, or all our femininity needs balance, but it's like he reconnected to that. And he's a yoga teacher. He doesn't like to say it much, but he really is he's a phenomenal teacher. He guides phenomenal meditations. Like, there's not a meditation that I attend with Haytham that I don't end up coming out with huge realizations.
We're very proud to announce our collaboration with a brand that we strongly resonate with and are huge fans of. The Woman Power podcast will be sponsored by Neo Books and Coffee for our upcoming season 4. Neo Books and Coffee is an independent bookshop and coffee bar housing a wide collection of both English and Arabic books, stationery, and gifts. Their coffee bar serves and sells quality teas from tea pigs and only the finest Arabica beans. They also have a coffee app available on both iOS and Android devices. The Woman Power podcast is delighted to be working with our new partners and look forward to producing more meaningful content and recognizing our goals together. Watch the space for more exciting details. So when you went to Nepal and you went to that yoga class, was that your first time experiencing yoga, or have you done a class before in Saudi? So can you tell me about your first experience? Did you feel something like, wow, this feels right? Or was this something you were doing that you were just building on?
The first time I ever did anything in regards to yoga was online. I finished a class. I was doing some sort of a workout, and the trainer said, finish your stretching back home. The workout was very intense, and it really was intense. So I went back home. My back was hurting me. So I was like, my God, I want to do something to help my back. And then I opened up the internet, the YouTube, and then I researched something. And then throughout the practice, I felt I was very hungry. This was weird. Like, I was very hungry, but I wanted to stretch and then go eat. And then suddenly I was like, throughout the practice, it's like I forgot I was hungry. And then I felt very present. And then I felt like maybe the first time I've ever felt in my body. I was like, wow, this yoga thing, what is this? Like, I need a little bit more of this into my life. But I didn't really take it seriously. Like, that was the only thing I did. And then boom, Nepal. And then yoga at 7 a.m. in the morning, and I had no idea what it is. And I was very judgmental. I'm not gonna lie. I wasn't like, oh my God, this is amazing. I'm like, okay, so we're doing this pose. I don't know what is the purpose? Like, can we get a little bit more movement into this? Can it be a little bit more fast? But the more I was in each pose, and my body was literally at one point just saying, I'm over this. I'm over it. I cried. I was crying so much. Wafa, I was crying in the beginning, I was crying at the middle, I was crying at the end. And every time when I finished with the whole crying, in the midst of it, I feel like I hate you, I want this to be done. And then afterwards, I just felt so good. I had the best sleep of my life. I was dealing with this internal, very bratty, annoying, whiny, complaining voice within me. But I realized this whiny, this is just that whiny kid in the supermarket that is like screaming at his mom at the cereal section. But like, it's so interesting when people tell me, oh, yoga isn't my thing. To make fun of people that practice yoga. Literally, and then I went to teaching yoga.
Yoga is so interesting. Like, I think for me, the only way I can explain it, and I don't practice much, but there are phases in my life where my body needs it. So I listen to it. I'm like, I'm going to give this to you. Here you go. But like, it's very yummy. It's like having a really nice meal, but for your body. It's very like, that's how and it's also like a hug. Like, I feel like I'm just giving myself a hug. Like, I'm giving my body some love and just a treat. And it just, after I'm done, I just feel like someone has really held me, and I feel so relieved and rested and being kind to myself. And sometimes I'm like, there's no time for me even to do a 10-minute session. But once I do it, once I'm finished, I just feel like, wow, that felt really good. Like, I'm yummy. Like, these are the little things that I say to myself after, like, even a 10-minute session. So I understand why you were so drawn to it. Did you feel like, this is it for me? Like, so now you've dabbled in it, you've done it in Nepal, you started practicing every day, you committed to 365 days. Was it pulling you as in like, this is my purpose? Like, this is what I think I'm here to do, help people learn this body language and fall in love and be good to themselves?
When I came back and I committed to the practice, and I saw, before teaching anyone, right, the idea of teaching it, though that wasn't even an idea. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to become a yoga teacher. Not at all. I came back and was doing my practice, and then everything was literally just going very well for me suddenly, right? From work, with family, people saw a difference in me. I saw a difference in me. And then I just noticed, again, the top things for me was my sleep was better. The way I was consuming food was way better. I was aware, conscious to things that were happening around me. I wasn't operating on autopilot anymore. I was allowing myself to feel the emotions that wanted to rise up. When I want to feel sad, I allow myself to feel sad. When I'm feeling anger or rage, I ask the questions that I need to ask myself. I check in with myself. I feel like we're very busy checking in with everybody around us, but we don't check in truly with ourselves. Like, how am I feeling today? Do I really want this? Does this feel expansive? Is this a no? So really understanding myself. What does Hanan really want? And then gradually, because I was a trainer at my job, so I was in learning and development, I would train trainers and I would train leadership teams. That was part of my job. So I was really good at it. And I loved it. This was like a time for me in the beginning where I felt like there's no way I could teach. I'm not a good teacher. And then I was trained very well and I had an amazing mentor. I had amazing experiences. But then yoga came in and it just softened me. And when I say softened, I don't mean softened in the sense like I had all the glam you can imagine externally, but inside I was so rigid and hard and like very much tight, right? And then yoga came and just made me slower and calmer and kinder to myself. It's interesting. When I decided to leave the corporate world actually I didn't leave the corporate world. I wanted to do my yoga teacher training to dive deeper into the practice. I was in a relationship with Haytham at the time and I just mentioned it to him. He's like, how long is it? I'm like, it's a month and it's in India. And he's like, I don't think your job's going to give you a month. You can take 2 weeks, right? But like not 1 month consecutively, right? So I remember walking up to my manager at the time and talked to him and he's like, a month? And then he's like, Hanan, you can, but it's gonna be tough. He's like, Hanan, but by the way, the majority of people that do what you're doing will end up quitting. I'm like, no, what are you talking about? I'm never gonna quit. This is gonna be something on the side for me. Of course, no way. I'm like, look at me, look at my position. Like, I had an extremely high paying salary, extremely high. I had phenomenal medical insurance. I had a yearly tickets, blah, blah. I had so many benefits. And it was a phenomenal working environment as well. But when I went to that yoga teacher training and I came back, I knew I had 1 more year left in this job and I'm out. And I barely lasted for a year. Like I came back from the yoga teacher training. I was there for maybe 6 months. I put in my resignation, which was not an easy thing to say bye to. It shook. That was really, really a pivotal moment in my life. It was pivotal on many aspects because when I mentioned that to my dad literally screamed, yelled. The house shook. That's what I felt. And he stopped speaking to me for a year. He literally said, I will, in Arabic. Imagine like your dad and like, I don't know, for every Arab woman out there or for any woman out there who has had this experience, sitting on the couch, and my dad's sitting in front of me. He's wearing his thobe, right? That time between Maghrib prayer and Isha prayer. It's that time when my dad is kind of like in a good mood, right? I'm approaching him in his good mood. And I'm like, Dad, listen, I'm thinking that I want to become a yoga teacher and like leave my job for a bit. And as soon as I said that, his body language immediately changed. He sat up straight. He looked at me. His tone changed. His hand language, just like he looked at me. He's like, Hanan, if you do this, he's like, of course not. Of course not. This is something on the side. Tennis. I play tennis. I play squash. I play squash on the side. Nobody becomes, and then he becomes very like fidgety. And he's like, no. He's like, did you already submit your resignation? He kind of knew what I was making at the time, my salary. He's like, nobody leaves their job. You make more than what a doctor makes. No. And he just went crazy. He stood up and he said, something on the lines of like, I'll disown you from my family, right? And I'm like, disown me? What is it? What? Who is this man? And then he stormed off of the room and he didn't speak to me. At the time, I had so much rage and so much sadness. Like, first of all, this is my job. I make my own money. What are you talking about? I support myself financially. All I have is a room upstairs. I'll pay rent if you want, like in my head. But then I could see like, what was it, like a week after that, my dad became this child. My dad grew up very poor. My dad was he did not have a great childhood growing up. And he wanted his eldest daughter to have this prestigious job and successful career. And she's going to, after all of this, just flush it down the drain. But in my head, I was like, by the way, if I wanted a job, I could just find another job. I believe in my qualifications. I believe in myself. I can get another job as I did in all my other jobs, right? I got them. I could do it. Why is he panicking?
First of all, it's crazy that all our fathers are the same. If they don't get their way, I have a very similar experience with my dad. He's angry. And there's this whole sense of like, I own you, like I made you. You're going to listen to what I have to say. Even if you're in your 20s or 30s or you're independent, our parents' permission, our parents' approval, our parents, what they think of us, what will people think? Like we have to deal with all of that stuff from our parents and their expectations of us, right? Sometimes our parents would rather we're unhappy, but doing something that makes them look and feel good, or something that they think is best for us, versus they don't place any value to what we want to do sometimes, even if it doesn't make sense in the beginning or if there's no financial reward. Like it's such a different set of values for sure. What was it like for you? Because look, when I fight with my dad or my mom, I'm one of those people that I can carry on with my life, but it's like as I get older as well, like it does really bother me, because if anything happened, I just don't want us to be fighting. يعني الله يطول في عمرهم and your parents. It's so hard for me now to be fighting with my mom. Like I could have lasted like a couple of days and not talk to her. But now it's like I just want to get along with everyone. So what was it like for that 1 year when he didn't talk to you? Were you angry the whole year?
I was very sad. I was so disappointed. I was so heartbroken. I felt like, it was very disappointed in the way he dealt with the situation. It was like my superhero. I looked up to him and I always wanted to make him proud. And then because I'm choosing to do something for myself, but I did all of this khair and good, and like, why can't you just be supportive? Why? Like, why can't you just be nice and kind to me and more understanding? And it's not like I did something so drastic. By the way, I understand that I make it sound like not that drastic, but I had this, yes, great job and all. But the truth is, the sacrifice that you have to do for these kind of jobs is, yes, I was getting paid phenomenal, a big amount of money. Yes, I gave my life to this job. So I had from 8 a.m. And my dad would think, oh, you come home and your work hours end at the office. It doesn't. No, it doesn't. I have calls with the team in France and the team in this region. And then and I'm constantly on the go. I was traveling everywhere from South Africa, random countries. So it was very demanding. When I went for the yoga teacher training and I came back, I started to give classes. And I think this is where he kind of kicked himself, right? Because I was like, can I give classes in the house? They're like, yeah, sure. You can take the guest living room. It was a nice, large space. And I started giving classes from my parents' living room. And it was the first time I launched, I got 12 women signed up for a monthly package. And then suddenly the demand became really high. I had to open up another group of women to come in on the other days. And then I'm realizing, wow, in this month, I made almost 70% of what from my salary. What? I didn't even expect this. And then suddenly the next month, and people wanted to sign up and they were telling their friends, and it just kept booming and flourishing. So when I noticed this flourishing for around 4 months consecutively, and then 6 months, this is when I decided I would like to say bye to my current job and focus on this, really give it my everything in me. So he would come back sometimes when entering the home from the back, from the other side. He's like, Hannah, all these cars are outside, all of this for you. He really didn't, and I didn't tell him this is how much I'm making. I didn't want to bring finances into it. This thing is making me so happy and so fulfilled. But when I mentioned it to him, and I wasn't aware that I was doing something very powerful. I would go up to my room and I would have a conversation with my dad with my eyes closed. So I would sit and say everything that I wanted to say to him. I would say, I'm so hurt. But I would just keep saying it again and again and again and cry. And I did that for, by the way, a long time. And then I realized that I was doing something called Ho'oponopono. Ho'oponopono is a very sacred, people call it a meditation, but it's like a ceremony. And it's a Hawaiian ceremony it's like, subhanallah, I didn't even know. And you have a conversation with somebody that when they're not there, you can have this with anyone right now from across the world. And you would end it by saying, I love you. Please forgive me. Thank you. And I would do that with my dad. At the end of it, I'll just say, like, I love you and you're not talking to me and I'm so upset. I would literally visualize him sitting in front of me. I would even his scent, right? To this extent, I would like bring him in the room because I couldn't say the things that I wanted to say to him. Anyways, after a year of him not speaking to me and my yoga was flourishing and then things were just unraveling for me, he spoke to me. And he, of course, my dad being my dad, he was just like, oh yeah, he just starts speaking to me like we were talking just yesterday.
When I started my company for the first 5 years, my dad would be like, you're sure you don't want to work in a bank? Are you sure you don't want to work in a bank? Are you sure? Like, I had employees. What do you mean? Like, so he was in denial for the longest time. When did you feel, or when did you get the idea you wanted to start your studio? And what was that experience like?
When we officially got married, Haytham and I, we were in the hunt to find an apartment within our budget with a big living room, a big space that we can operate my studio. So we were hunting and looking, and then we finally found a space because obviously I was moving. I didn't want to operate from my parents' living room anymore. And I always knew from the get-go, like literally, I will never work for somebody. It's like this thing, just this knowing. I knew it. Like, my name is Hanan. I knew in me, it's not like there's anything wrong with working for anyone, not at all. But it's like, this is what I needed to do for me, right? And then when I told him, he's like, yeah, definitely, of course. I'm like, yes, because I have all these students. I can't just now not have a space. And we were searching, and then we finally found an older building, because usually the older buildings have bigger spaces, and it was really not attractive from outside. The external building, I was just like so humiliated by it. You have no idea. It's like this weird bright blue, but it was in our price range. It was in a decent neighborhood. It wasn't too far away. Like, it was centrally located for people. We launched, and the yoga studio is Hoakalei. Hoakalei is my Hawaiian name, by the way. It's literally on my American passport even. And it's my mother's Hawaiian name as well. The mother gives her eldest daughter her name to keep the bloodline strong. This is what they believe. So Hoakalei means angel's halo, or like this, or the strongest love. So I decided to call my yoga studio Hoakalei, and it was, to me, I was constantly worried because, I don't know, I felt there were some yoga studios, but very, I don't know, like very high class and very expensive at the time. And I was like, what? But I come from India, like none of this, it's not expensive and it's not fancy at all, but it was intimidating. So yoga was kind of like positioned for more the elite, great bodies, like more like the girls, all the girls in school that didn't hang out with me did yoga, right? Those girls. So I came and like, I'm the Shehri girl, like opening up a yoga studio from her home, like very bare minimum, and trying to buy really good quality yoga mats. Just, I'm trying. And then my classes are full and getting full and full and full. And I'm saying like, wow, these people really like what I'm saying, or really like learning. It's so motivating, by the way, when you're starting off. And then gradually other yoga studios started to open, and they were top notch, like the expensive yoga mats. And I'm like, okay, I have to up my game. I have to really like up my prices too. I can really, and not up my prices. Like at a time, yoga was 300 riyals, like close to $100 per class. Can you believe? And I'm like, what? And then I dropped the prices, but at the same time, wanted to sustain, make a living out of this and be able to invest in good quality things. And anyways, things just started to flourish, and to a point where it was, all my classes were fully booked every single day of the week. I was opening up, I was teaching more than 3 times a day, three different groups. I had to bring in like somebody to help, and I was doing all of this through WhatsApp. Can you imagine like WhatsApp bookings? It was so like by myself with my notebook, and then I need to bring in somebody to help manage the bookings, and then gradually I invested into a website and invested on like a scheduling where they can schedule their classes and book their classes, and they boomed when I chose to really invest in the business, into the yoga studio, into bringing people on to help me. And then Haytham was like, wow, this is really growing. When I say growing, I mean literally it became too big for me to manage on my own. And events, and people wanted to do interviews, and then gradually I'm like, but what am I saying? And then people would recommend other people. And then I'll be very frank. At one point I became kind of like nervous because when people come into the yoga studio, they come in with their like, I don't know, leggings and shirt. I don't know who they are. Like, I don't know. They don't come in with their fancy schmancy, like, you know. But Haytham apparently, because he would wait for all the girls to leave. And then when everybody would leave, I would notify him and then he can come into the house. So, because it had its own door, but the main door to enter the apartment, he would have to like pass through. So, oh my God, those days. So he was like, Hanan, who is in your class? I'm like, why? He's like, Hanan, there's like all these fancy Rolls Royces downstairs. And I'm like, really? I don't know. Do I have like, I didn't know I had anybody fancy in my class. And then I started becoming a little bit paranoid. Am I good enough? But he's like, Hanan, what do you mean you are good enough? All these people are coming. Like you can't take any more people on. It's just interesting how yoga just became, it literally boomed. And I knew I was a contributing factor to it, but it was like this flow was happening in the studio and people just loved it. They kept showing up every day. People weren't missing classes. And even the elite people were not spending this big money anymore. They realized, oh, we don't need to spend this crazy money on yoga. It can be very much affordable. This price of your yoga class doesn't determine the quality of the class.
You said earlier on that the space kind of became, or this business kind of became a bit of a burden. It was weighing you down. I also know you have pivoted your whole business into a digital subscription-based yoga experience. So you can, and I know you've been working on this for more than a year, which is a huge commitment. That means that the quality, maybe more than a year, I don't know. But then is the decision of, so one, why was it weighing you down specifically? Because right now it feels to me like things were flowing at this stage in your career. And then what made you come up with this idea that, we're going digital and I don't want to, I no longer need to teach unless I want to, but now anybody from around the world can sign up and do yoga with me in my living room without actually physically me being there.
At the current studio I was at, we decided to upgrade to another place because the business kind of grew. So I needed a bigger place and I did that. And then khalas, like I wasn't, at one time, when you launch something, you feel like, oh, is it going to work? Are the classes going to be full? Alhamdulillah, like I didn't, at one point, that wasn't a concern anymore. Khalas, all the classes were full. That wasn't a concern. It's just like, let's put whatever you put on the schedule. So we were holding workshops and da-da-da-da-da. But I was teaching yoga physically for 5 years. And then I went to India again. I did my 500-hour yoga teacher training. And then I did a lot of retreats. So I've done over 15 yoga retreats. And we've held our first yoga teacher training. But something was saying, this teaching again and again, like it was like I was teaching, but this isn't enough. This needs to grow bigger. Why am I repeating the same thing over and over and over again when I could kind of deliver it to more of a mass, a bigger? I never thought I would go on digital because I'm not really the best with technical stuff either, but Haytham was kind of like next to me. Digital. We need to launch a platform. Like, a platform? I don't know. Like, no, we're doing fine. Like, and when I decided that, when I woke up one day and I had like an early class, it wasn't sparking. It wasn't giving me that joy again. It wasn't giving me that, yes. And when classes would finish, I wouldn't feel like, oh, this was I feel fulfilled today. Today I feel fulfilled. I wasn't getting that feeling. So this is the sign for me. I have a program. It's in Arabic though, with North, and it's understanding what your intuition is trying to tell you. And I feel like intuitively we know when something's about to, a change wants to happen, or this has expired. It's time to move on now to the next. And the yoga studio did that. The yoga studio served its purpose. And again, alhamdulillah, where now I know some businesses choose to reopen and stuff, but I would not be in a good space right now to feel like I wanted to operate a yoga studio. It's not something I would want to do now in these current times. So thank God that we decided to close, and Haytham kind of like pushed for it. And he's like, Hanan, like the yoga studio, we want to travel more. We decided that we wanted to live in Bali for 6 months because that's where we hold most of our retreats, and in Turkey for 6 months, like change. And so let's move digitally. And I'm like, he's like, but we're going to build our own platform. We're going to start it from scratch. And it was a heavy investment in the beginning. I'm like, can we do this? Is it going to work? All this money is going to go into this. And a lot of thinking, a lot of brainstorming, a lot of and we moved everything digitally. In the beginning, me teaching in front of a camera felt a little bit weird, but when did I know that I was doing the right thing is when I launched a program called رحلة 21 يوم للتغيير, 21 Days of Change. And when we launched this program, ya Allah, it makes me so emotional thinking about it. When you ask, the universe will give you. I'm telling you, just ask and you shall receive. We came to Turkey, we opened up our business, lockdowns happened, we had to cancel 2 fully booked retreats in Bali in April, give everybody their money back, and that money was what was going to sustain us this year in Turkey, like the move. I can't express the panic, the panic we were in. Like, what are we going to do now? What? We've invested in this platform, but we can't, like it's not even ready yet. And then I wanted to teach, and then I reached out to Nof, brainstorming with Nof, and then Nof's like, why don't you launch something on our platform? They have a website, Inner Light. And I was like, oh yeah, I could do that. I could launch something on your platform. We launched the program. Literally, Wafa, in 4 minutes, I had 21 themes, the whole idea ready. I was saying, Ya Rab, please, just if we have 50 to 70 people sign up, I'm forever grateful. We launched the program. It was a live classes that you can attend. And of course, if you can attend, the recorded version will be available. It boomed. It just went so big, so fast. Everybody was signing up for this program. I was crying. Haytham was crying. We were recording this from an Airbnb in Istanbul, in lockdown, petrified that are we going to even be able to survive? Like literally. And people loved it. And then I was like, yes, we're going, Haytham, you're right. Digital, we're going to go digital. You're right. This is it. And alhamdulillah, that's all I can say.
So how many people signed up to the program?
Over 700.
And how has the feedback been?
Until now, feedback comes in. Like, it's so humbling. It's so humbling that in a day we would get 100 people messaging and just saying, I've never experienced anything like this. And it's not like anything intense. We just guided people. I was sharing with people my practice. What helped me? This is, okay, you guys, let's plug in. Let's just do this. I know it seems like a lot of time. I know 45 minutes seems like a lot of time, but we're in lockdown. We have nowhere else to go. Let's do this together. Let's be here. For me, I'll be here for you. Let's do this, right? And we did. And it's in Arabic. There's so much beautiful content in English out there, but I feel like the Middle East needs this.
You launched your yoga programs through your platform. How has that been?
Mana by Us, I say this with so much pride, really. It is, Mana by Us is an extension of me and Haytham. It's Haytham behind the camera. We have a phenomenal developer. We have put our what is it? Your sweat and tears into this. Yeah, blood, sweat, and tears. And there's times where we just feel like, I look at it and it brings me so much pride, really. And it's Mana is it's a Hawaiian word, and it means the spiritual, the life force within everyone. Everybody has mana. The trees have mana. You and I have mana, and it's this superpower that keeps us alive. And we want to just help people connect through this platform, through mana, reconnect to the internal wisdom that you have. We all have this wisdom. We all have this intuition. You have an inner teacher. I could be I'm guiding you back to your own teacher. Right? And this, like, we have monthly subscriptions and quarterly every 6 months, and then yearly. Of course, in my head, I'm like, oh, people will not sign up for the yearly. And it's so shocking to find that people are committing to a year. And this is so, to me, like mind-boggling, because there's not anything like it in the Middle East. That is subscriptions based. Usually in the Middle East, we have more programs to be sold, which is a nice strategy, but it's more like short term versus like building this community that comes on to practice. It's not just yoga, Wafa. It's not just like, oh, let's do a bunch of poses that will make you look, I don't know, like flexible. It's not. It's where it's a safe space. When you said your podcast is a safe space, I love that so much, because this is what we say in Arabic. It's masaha amina. It doesn't have any ads. There's classes from 10 minutes to 1 hour to 1 hour and a half to 1 hour and a half. There are programs. We're launching our live classes that will stream through the platform, blogs, community page. It's this powerful place on the internet where you plug in to come back to yourself.
I mean, it's crazy to think that you're a tech entrepreneur. Like you and Haytham are now bringing this to a mass audience. And it's something that's, in a way, like you're able to support so many more people than, being in a physical space in a yoga studio. You can now reach millions of people and be there for them. I love that you said that what I'm trying to do is get you to connect with your teacher. So I thought that's really powerful. I do feel like we all have it in us, and sometimes we need someone to ask the right questions or to get us in a different mind space to tap into what we already know inside of us that maybe we're ignoring, or we're not listening to this inner voice that's always like guiding us like a little compass, like go here, go there, do this, no, yes. And I don't know if we always give ourselves enough space to be able to do that. So I want to sign up to that to that course with you and Nov for sure, because I think that's where I feel where I'm at as well. Like I want to kind of tap into more of my intuition. This was wonderful. I want to end it with just one question, which is, what do you feel is your superpower?
I'm definitely going to be calling Nov after this, because she helped me see this as a superpower. The one thing she usually says, the one thing that you were maybe made fun of or patronized as a child, like that one thing that people kind of pick on, is usually your superpower. And I never believed ever for a very long time, for many, many, many years, like till I was maybe 26, that I don't have the ability to really speak. Like I'm not intellectual enough. I'm not smart enough. My voice is not clear enough. And it was a very harsh judgment on myself, right? And the one thing that I was very critical on is my superpower. The number one thing that people tell me, and I say it from a very humble space within me, is that I'm able to say that thing that's stuck within people that they aren't able to express. And I might not use the most fanciest words. I just say it how I feel it. And sometimes it doesn't really make sense to me at that time, but later on it just kind of like ignites something. And I'm like, people message me. The number one message that I get from people is, thank you for sharing. You said exactly what I needed to hear. And I just allow. I do have that critical voice that tells me, Hanan, shut up. You've overtalked. You don't have a point here. I'm able to have more, to manage that voice now. It's not really leading. It's not really shouting or in a very high voice anymore. It's kind of like the volume on it is lower, and I have more compassion and understanding. And my superpower, to just like be straight up, is my ability to truly connect with the person in front of me. And when I'm here, I am fully here. I speak from my heart. I just speak from my heart.
That's it for this week. Thank you for listening to an episode of the Woman Power Podcast. And thank you for downloading and streaming our podcast every week. If you love what you've heard, tag us on Instagram and follow the Woman Power Podcast and Woman Power Summit account for more information on our next episode. Please leave a rating review wherever you get your podcast. It really helps other women discover the show. That's it from me. See you next week.